everyone! Today we're back with the Women's World Cup and I'm going to be showing you the second game of the third round between my mother, Grandmaster Pia Cramling, and former Women's World Champion, Grandmaster Alexandra Kosteniuk. This was the second game of the match, and because my mother lost the first game of the match, she really needed to win. I mean, if she didn't win, then, she was sent back home. So, we're gonna go ahead and get started with the game. My mother is playing with the black pieces, and Kosteniuk started with e4. And before the game, my mom was like, what should I play? I need to play something active, something that'll give me winning chances. And an opening that's great for that is the Sicilian. So she played the Sicilian, she played c5. Knight f3 was played by Kosteniuk. d6, which, can transpose to many different lines. For instance, the Najdorf. Bishop b5. And now everybody, this is a really common move to go bishop b5 check. This is one of the main moves by white. And the idea of going bishop e5 check is that this bishop, the light square bishop, is a bad bishop typically, because you're gonna get your pawn to d3, especially if you play a kind of close Sicilian, you're gonna get your pawn to d3, and all your pawns are gonna be on light squares. So typically this is a bad bishop. So actually, you are kind of happy if black exchanges their bishop, because this bishop is better than this one. This one is typically also a really bad bishop because all the pawns are in dark squares. So that is the idea of going bishop b5, to just say, you know what, I'm going to get a little bit of an edge if I get to exchange my bad bishop versus this one, which is why many people go knight d7. And this is what my mom played here. The idea is just to not exchange the bishops and kind of ask white's bishop, what are you doing on b5? That is what they want to do. So bishop a4 was played just so that there wouldn't be any a6, b5 with tempo before. Knight f6, just getting the knight out and developing. Castles, g6. And now everybody, we are transposing to a dragon, which is very beautiful. We are transposing to a dragon, which is basically when you get your bishop up to g7. Rook e1 was played just, to kind of put some pressure on the e-file to defend this pawn as well, most importantly. And you may ask yourself, why is black not taking this pawn at this point? And the reason for that is because after knight takes e4 at this point and rook e1, because that white starts getting lots and lots of development. And it's going to take a while for black to get this bishop out and to castle and everything. So after something like d4, white is just going to get a very active position. I mean, if we look at this position, what color would you rather play with? White with this position, even though they're a pawn down, or black, which have a really cramped position? So that is why that pawn is not taken. But after g6, then this pawn is a little bit more threatened, because now you actually have some time to go bishop g7 and castle. So rook e1 was played, bishop g7, c3. Idea of c3 is to go d4 and to start just attacking the center and just getting a little bit of central space. Right now there isn't that much of that. Castles was played and d4 immediately. And now at this point there are lots of different ideas. So one main move in this position is to go e5. That's a pretty standard move, and the idea of going e5 is simply that you're forcing white to block the center by going d5, and then you as black might start going ahead and putting some little bit of minority attack on the queen side. That can be a very common idea. Another common idea in this position after d4 is to go for something like knight b6 and bishop g4, because this knight is the one that's defending d4, and you have some pressure on this diagonal. You really want to get a bishop up to g4 just to go ahead and pin the knight. So you want to get this knight out as soon as possible, which is why knight b6 at this point was played, just to be able to immediately go bishop g4. So bishop c2 was played, and now in this position, bishop g4 is a very common move, but my mom decided to go for c takes d4 first, with the idea of just opening up the c file. So she went ahead and took there, and now she went bishop g4. But that is the idea of going knight b6, to open up that diagonal for the bishop. Knight b2 was played just to defend this knight and also to get your knight out. But now when you go knight d2, then you're immediately saying, you know what, this bishop, I am blocking this bishop right now. I am blocking it. But I mean, this bishop will either be able to go out by b3 and bishop here, or it will be able to go out after something like knight f1 or something. So it's okay that this bishop is not gone out yet. And now my mother went for this move d5. And the idea of d5 is basically just to, you know, put a little bit more of attack on the center. Yes, white can go e5, but because my mom was in a must-win situation, she was just trying to play very actively. So e5 was played here, and black is starting to get a little bit cramped. I mean, black is starting to get their pieces a bit, you know, moved back. But it's not really that bad. At this point, my mom went knight e8. I kind of like the idea of going knight d7, knight b8, and knight c6. I kind of like this idea, but knight e8 makes also a lot of sense to go knight c7 and then to bring your knight up over here at some point. So both of those moves make a lot of sense. Knight e8 was played, h3, just kicking the bishop away, and by the point where you have put your bishop on g4, you kind of have to take this knight. I mean, like, okay, you could go back to d7, but that would like the bishop is not really doing anything here right now. So you kind of want to take this knight just because otherwise there's no point with that bishop have gone up there. When the bishop can't go back to h5 due to g4 trapping it. So now knight c7 was played. My mom was trying to get the pieces out. She remembered that the day before against Kosteniuk, and I will post that link of that video so you guys can watch that game. She had a knight stuck on the last rank the whole game, which was really sad. I mean, my mom, when I called her, she was like, Anna, can I just tell you something? It's so sad to have a knight stuck and that you cannot move it anywhere and to not be able to move any of your pieces. It hurt. Once again, if you want to see how that happened, I have filmed the video from that game. But yeah, so she didn't want that to happen again, which is why she went knight c7. a4 was played at this point. Idea is to kind of kick away this knight at some point, maybe with a5, also kind of stopping any knight b5 at any point. And my mother, she needs to be as fast as possible. Like, she needs to start. Okay, I think that there's a big family with like 3 dogs that are right outside of us. I don't know if you guys can hear that. And Spanish people speak loudly. I know that I do it. I mean, I'm Spanish. Like, I know that I speak loudly, but like, it really is true. We speak loudly here. Anyways, knight c4 was played, just bringing the knight up. And at this point, I mean, you gotta be a bit careful because there might be times when a5 and b3 might be played. But the thing is that if a5, then this pawn is going to be very, very weak after something like, for instance, just knight a6, stopping b4 from being played. So it's not really like that big of a threat right now. But you have to be a bit cautious with your knight when it's in a place over here, just so that, you know, you never get it trapped. And now at this point, Kosteniuk started going on the other side. She went h4, and the idea of h4 is simply to go h5. Like, you just, it's a very common idea when you have a setup like this little, you know, this little triangle with your fianchettoed bishop, that you want to go h4, h5, and just kind of ask, you know, what this triangle, what they're gonna do. And if they don't do anything, which typically they can't, because if they take, it's a disaster for the king, then many times you go h6 and just kind of lock this bishop on h8 forever. And that's a very common idea. So what my mother did here was that she went knight e6. She was just trying to centralize her knight and get a little bit more of play for this knight. And at this point, h5 would have been a pretty good move. Like, you definitely can go h5. But for some reason, you know, Kosteniuk chose to not do it. And I'm gonna show you another idea of going knight e6 is the fact that after knight g5, you can take this knight. And this is actually really important that you can take this knight, because at this point, and I'm just going to go back a few moves, and I just wanted to show you this. At this point, if white goes knight g5 and black goes h6, trying to kick away this knight. Then there's this move knight takes f7. And after rook takes f7, bishop g6, I mean, this is really scary to play. This whole diagonal is going to be for the white pieces forever. And the white pieces are extremely strong here. So, and also you have some e6 ideas sometimes, and you know, this bishop is coming up, this queen is coming up, this is looking real ugly. So actually going knight e6 is really important so that knight g5 is stopped. And Kosteniuk went knight g5 now. And I guess that there might be the same idea as if h6, that, you know, you might be able to okay, now you can actually take here, but you might be able to take on f7 as well. But now you obviously just take here and take on g6. But there's always these knight takes f7 ideas that I wanted to show you. So you need to take on g5 here, and now the bishop can take here or the pawn can take here. But if you take with the bishop, then the pawn on b2 is going to be hanging. And because Kosteniuk didn't want to give any chances, she decided to take with the pawn. And at this point, e6 would have been the type of move that would just kind of have equalized the whole thing. I mean, you have a kind of similar pawn structure, and yes, there is this pawn over here, but it's gonna be could be a pretty weak pawn. You can go queen b6 at some point, put some pressure over here. And if white is going to try to go for a win, then one idea could be to go g3, king g2, rook h1, bring the queen up, but that's going to take a long time. So this is a pretty locked up position, which, to be honest, there's not too much going on because of the pawn structure. But my mom thought that if she went for e6, then this would just be very difficult to win if Kosteniuk didn't give any chances, which we know that Kosteniuk doesn't want to give many chances. There's a reason for why she's been women's world champion. So f6 was played at this point, and this objectively might not be, why can I not draw a single arrow right? I think there's something wrong with my hand. F6 might objectively not be the best move because of, well, because of what happened in the game, but it does open up the position, and it does give both sides more chances, both white and black. So what my mother is trying to do is just say, you know what, Kosteniuk, you can win this game, but I'm gonna give my absolute, you know, last straw to be able to win this game too. So, well, obviously my mom didn't want Kosteniuk to win the game, but I'm just saying that she wanted to have a position where both players could win. So f6 was played, and at this point Kosteniuk played something very clever. She could have started by taking this pawn, but she decided to go b3 first, because then she's forcing the knight to go to either b6 or to a5, and knight a5 makes more sense because after knight b6 there might be some a5. So knight a5 makes a lot of sense in this position. And now she took on f6. Now g takes f6 was played, e takes f6, and in the game I thought that, you know, e6 would be played, but actually she played a very, 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 very nice move. She played bishop a3 first, kicking away this rook, just kind of forcing, you know, the rook to go to e8. And after rook e8, everybody, she, once again, I mean, she could have gone e6. I think that the pawn might have gone a bit weak there, which is what I think she was afraid of as well. So she decided to go bishop d6 and just play this very solidly. And this was quite a nice idea of bringing the bishop all the way up to d6. Now this is a pass protected pawn. So this pawn could become very strong at some point if nothing really happens and it's not really taken care of. But it can also become a weak pawn. At this point, my mother went knight c6, she went back with the knight, she was putting some pressure on e5, and queen f3 was played. And this is a really, 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 really strong move because you're putting pressure on d5, and there's not really that many ways of stopping it. So actually there's like not a single way to defend this pawn, because you can't go for something like knight e7 simply because of the fact that there is going to be pawn takes f6. So there's actually not a single way of preventing this one from being taken. And now there were two options. You could either go king takes h8 or f takes e5. Both are kind of going to transpose, because after f takes e5 and queen takes d5 check, there's king h8 getting outside of the check. And this is a very nice line, everybody. After pawn takes on e5, there's this really nice idea of knight takes e5. And this is a really important move to do because, once again, as I was saying before, this pawn was going to become an extremely, extremely, extremely strong pawn otherwise. And at this point, there's, once again, lots of different things that Kosteniuk could do, but the thing in this position is that the bishop cannot take the knight because the queen takes the queen. Rook cannot take the knight because of simply, bishop takes, or actually not just bishop takes, but actually, sorry, I mean for rook takes. Bishop takes would actually just be with check. You go rook takes, you need to go rook takes, and now you cannot take back. So no bishop there. You see how fast this can go wrongly? No, you need to, if rook takes, you need to take with the rook, of course. So you can't really take this one at this point at all. And this is actually really, 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 really interesting now. So what she needs to do, what Kosteniuk needs to do, is that she kind of wants to bring her more pieces in. Now that she cannot do anything over here, she wants to bring her other pieces. Her rook on a1 is not really doing anything, and there are all these type of pins over here. So she brings it to d8, which makes a lot of sense. And knight c6 was played here. I thought that something like queen f6 might be played to get the pieces out of this file. I kind of liked queen f6 at this point. Kind of liked it, but I think that the problem is that there's queen takes b7, and then there's like no real way of claiming that, you have any compensation for that pawn. So knight c6 makes a lot of steps. Knight c6 doesn't take a lot of steps. It makes a lot of sense because you're stopping the queen from taking on b7. And now many thought that Kosteniuk would decide to go for rook takes e8 because then she would simplify into a more, kind of drawish position. But I think that Kosteniuk actually thought that by exchanging these rooks, which, you typically say that if you want to go for a draw, you want to exchange pieces, but by exchanging these rooks, my mother is actually getting this whole e-file, and there's actually there becomes a bit of a play for her. I mean, it's going to become a lot easier for her to play by getting the rook to d8 and, holding this file. There's not really any good way of, taking this file by Kosteniuk herself. So I think that is why she went rook e4. She wanted to keep the tension. So I think that's why she went rook e4. And at this point, here's another time when queen f6 was a really interesting move. And once again, the idea of queen f6 is simply to bring the rook to d8 and just to put the rook on this file. And my mother thought for quite a bit at this position, and I think that this might have given some more chances because then she would have had ideas of queen c3, or she would have had ideas of queen b2. But from what I believe, and also what I think that Kosteniuk said in her analysis after game, was that she was planning on going rook f4 at this point. And actually, this is a little bit scary because if you go to the wrong place, like if you go to queen b2 or queen c3, which makes a lot of sense, there's actually this idea of bishop takes g6, because if you take back here, then there's then there is going to be this rook h4 move that, it's over. You can go bishop h6, but it's just completely over. You're giving away a piece and you're going to be getting checkmated. So this is not possible. So actually, rook f4 is a really strong move, and here the only move is to go queen e6 and to try to exchange the queens. But obviously, if she starts exchanging the queens, it is going to be perhaps a little bit harder to win for black. But this would probably perhaps have been objectively the best. But I think that my mother saw this. I like the fact that she went for rook c8, which objectively is not the best move, but it does perhaps bring some chances. Because you're creating this pin, you're creating some threats towards c2. And if white doesn't play really well, then there might be some chances. The problem is that, of course, this is Kosteniuk we're talking about, and she's really, really strong, and she doesn't miss a lot of things. And let me tell you something, when you're rooting for somebody, having them playing against somebody that never really misses anything, I can tell you from personal experience, it hurts. It hurts. But queen f7 was played, and this is a really strong move, just kind of kind of just putting pressure everywhere. I mean, this queen can't go now to f6 because then rook takes rook is going to be played. There are all of these ideas with the rook and the queen on this file. It's lots of ideas. So at this point, you kind of need to go, you kind of need to do something. And rook takes e4 was the move that was played, which is one of the most logical moves, just trying to get some more space for this queen and also like take away the threat of rook takes e8. Another idea that's a really, really, I mean, I would say almost impossible idea to spot is to go b5. But to be honest, I feel like this is just like a computer move. Like, I don't think anybody would spot this move, b5. Like, the idea of b5 is simply that you're claiming that, you know what, there's nothing going on here, so you shouldn't be afraid. And you're creating some kind of chances. Like, if you take here, then you might have rook takes, bishop takes, and then, knight d4 over here, and then you're centralizing this knight. But to be honest, I think that this is just a really difficult move that nobody really spots in a game. So rook takes e4 made a lot of sense, and bishop takes e4 was played. And in this moment, queen f6 could have been played again, but for the same reasons as I was saying before, my mother didn't really want to exchange queens because she was in a must-win situation. And that would just make this very easy to play for white with the bishop pair. It's pretty much impossible for white to lose. So my mother went for a very tricky move. She went for knight d4. And, right now, I want us to put a little bit of a black box in the analysis because I want you to tell me after knight d4, what do you think the idea of this is? What are the threats after knight d4? What is going on here? Because this is really interesting and it's really, really cool. Like at first when I was watching this game, I was like, but actually there's, if white doesn't play well here, it can get tricky. So tell me in the comments down below what you think the ideas are here. Boom, 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 boom. We speed run to another time, to, future, blah, 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 blah. You have put down in the comments what you think the idea is. The idea here is that black is threatening at this point this bishop. Black is threatening this bishop. And if this bishop goes anywhere, there's actually a checkmate in 2 moves. Knight e2 check. If king goes here, then you take this one. And if the king goes here, then you take this one. And yes, right, with bishop b4, it's not a checkmate, but still, like, you're a rook up. I mean, you're going to be bringing probably a second rook. I mean, you could, okay, probably you cannot go up here, obviously, because of queen e8 checkmate pretty much, but rook f8 is a really strong move, and this is just one. I mean, there's going to be knight check now after this, like if the queen goes whatever, there's going to be knight check. This is just really, really, really difficult. Maybe not with queen c7, but still, guys know what I mean. Like, you're a rook down here. This is not something you want to play. So there are some ideas. So actually, the only move in this position is to go queen takes b7, because then if you take the bishop, well, then there's going to be rook takes c8. But actually, it's pretty crazy that after knight d4, there's not a single other move that white can make to save this position. White needs to take on b7, and this is obviously something that that Kosteniuk spotted, but still very, very, very interesting. So queen takes b7, rook c3 was played, and rook c3, the idea of rook c3 is just to put some pressure on b3 and just kind of, we're doing a waiting move, saying that I want this bishop to move because then we're going to have the same idea of knight e2 check and then taking here. Another idea in this position would have been to go rook c5, and this was a pretty interesting idea, being of, bringing the rook to the other side, and, and also stopping queen d5, which is a very strong move. But the problem with both rook c3 and rook c5 is that Kosteniuk is going to have this queen b8 idea. And queen b8, the thing is that if you exchange over here, if you go queen takes b8, bishop takes b8, black is going to be losing this endgame probably, because you're going to be losing this pawn. You are going to be a pawn down probably as black, and it's just going to be very scary with the rook and 2 bishops, the bishop pair. I mean, it's really bad. It's like really, really bad. Like, you don't want to get into that. So Kosteniuk was being really smart, because now my mother needs to go rook c8 to not exchange, and then queen b7 was played. And right now, there's not really a lot of moves that my mother can do. I mean, knight e2 could have been another idea, but after king f1, I mean, like, there's not really a lot of things that you can do. If something like knight c3 or whatever, then there's going to be this move, rook c1, pinning everything. So actually, it's not easy to know what to do here. And there's actually not a lot of choices if you want to save the game in some way. So my mother went back and forth and they ended up being a draw. But this was really nice that Kosteniuk went queen b1 because she was kind of forcing the draw then. Because, I mean, either my mom takes the draw or she is probably going to lose the game. And yeah, and that was basically what happened. She drew this game versus Alexandra Kosteniuk, and she had, you know, she had a pretty, I mean, I think that she just had a pretty, like, pretty, not bad position, but she just didn't really, like, be able to get an advantage at any point of the game, and Kosteniuk just played really, really well. But I still liked how she, you know, kind of tried to constantly try to get chances by going f6, by trying to open up the position. So it was a really like fought game, but probably she just didn't like get the best opening ever. That was basically what happened, and Kosteniuk just played really well. So Kosteniuk did go and qualify to round number 4, and my mother did get eliminated. But that's okay, that's okay. GG's to Alexandra Kosteniuk, and you know, we will be checking out her games, or I'll be checking out her games. It's gonna be really fun to see how that goes, and you know, I'll be rooting for her now a bit. So yeah, this was a really, really nice game played by her, and sad that my mother lost, but that is the way it is, people. Disqualified, but as you always say, there is another World Cup. I mean, my mother, she loves the World Cups. Like, these are her favorite tournaments because she loves knockout tournaments. Like, my mom loves adrenaline. So, she's like, why does it have to be? Why does there have to be only a World Cup every 2 years? No, she wants World Cups to happen all the time. So, yeah, people, this was the game. I hope that you enjoyed watching me analyze this game. And, you know, I hope that you've been enjoying watching me analyze all of these, you know, games that my mother has been playing. Unfortunately, this was the very last game that we're going to be checking out from her in the World Cup because she did get disqualified. But, you know, we'll be back with more of this type of content. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed seeing me analyzing different games. I've been trying to do as instructive as possible and just explaining the ideas in the positions. So let me know if you've enjoyed this little series that I've been doing of mother playing in the World Cup. And yeah, I will see you all in the next video. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Morning, evening, day, whatever it is, wherever you live. Stay happy, stay healthy, and smile a lot. That's always the most important thing.